Lindsay Lambert, and it's my absolute pleasure to be your MC for today's morning's session. Today, we are creating and celebrating Creative Mornings Winnipeg at Creative Manitoba, who's one of our founding partners and continues to support Creative Mornings in so many ways. We are especially grateful for Tom Parling, the Executive Director of Creative Manitoba, who has provided support, advice, and encouragement since day one of Creative Mornings. Under Tom's leadership, Creative Manitoba strengthens, represents, and connects Manitoba's arts and creative industries for our city. Once we truly acknowledge how valuable our time is, I believe it can help us navigate how we can share the abundance of life that not only feels good for the ones around us and for ourselves, but also invites others to do the same. I'd encourage you to consider how you divide your time and if there are changes that can be made to ensure your energy is being reciprocated and valued the way it deserves. As we continue exploring December, remember that your time is truly a gift and that your abundance of giving should continue to be to leave you feeling fulfilled and also leave you feeling light.
You've made your stamp on this freezing room of mine. I bet you're running out of questions while overflowing with time. I've got a boatload of them, but the waters aren't clear. Cool as a sea cucumber, I'll just wait up the big waves. I'll just wait up the big waves. Are we both playing it cool? And I'm acting like a fool here, not from the chase and from the spotlight, running from another heart.
I'm going to get Olivia to bring up the manifesto, and then I thought we'd do something different today, which is to read it together. Because I often, as host, am consistently inspired by our manifesto, but it's often just one person up here reading it. And as a Creative Mornings community, I thought that maybe it would be an opportunity to go back to our grade 2 classrooms. We have some teachers in the front row here, to actually read together out loud. Because as you know, listening to Sophie, it creates a community when we can hear each other's voices. And so I invite you today to read with me. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving it down. We believe in face-to-face connections, in learning from others, in hugs and high fives. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. How did that feel? Yeah? So you've embodied the manifesto this morning. Thank you. I also want to read the diversity statement for our Winnipeg chapter because we believe in the power of diversity and the diversity of thought and perspectives, as well as the diversity of our own community. So our diversity statement is that the Winnipeg chapter is located in one of the most diverse communities in North America, and we are as inclusive as we are creative. And we will be creative in order to be inclusive. We believe in the value of the diversity of perspectives, audiences, and industries as we create safe events to debate and discuss what it means to be creative. We will celebrate multiple approaches and points of view, and we will be mindful and purposeful in building a culture where these differences are not only valued, but celebrated. Before I introduce our wonderful speaker for today, I wanted to take a little bit of time to reflect on 2022 as a chapter of Creative Mornings. For those of you who are new here, such a warm welcome. I'm so glad that you could join us this morning on this very cold day. And really grateful that, I always ask our new people, how'd you find out about us? And it's usually other people who've shown up before and enjoyed it. So that word of mouth and that personal connection, I think, is really important to growing our community. And so I want to acknowledge those of you who've supported Creative Mornings, those who are in the room and those who have joined us throughout 2022. We run on an engine of generosity. And that means, as Lindsay so beautifully said, we run on an engine of time, that you spend your time with us. You choose to get up early, come out of your warm houses into the cold, to spend time with us and time with each other. And so I want to acknowledge the gift of that. I also want to acknowledge the abundance of support we get from our partners, some of whom are in the room, some of whose coffee you're drinking, and really recognize how important our partners are to the work that we do. I want to acknowledge our speakers for all of our 11 events, as well as our musicians. Sophie, amazing. I've never heard the term walking blister in a song before, but I will never forget it. And what a beautiful voice you have. In 2022, Creative Mornings Winnipeg hosted 11 events. 3 of those were online and 8 of those were in person. We celebrated and explored the themes of free, monumental, folklore, kismet, now, wilderness, critical, depth, ethos, truth, and today, abundance. We welcomed approximately 790 people to our events, some of which were returning, but nonetheless, 790 people. Each event has been special in its own way, and I hope that those of you who keep returning can feel the love and celebration that this community creates each month. And obviously, we're trying to build an abundance of creativity in our community. I'm especially grateful as host that I get to, co-host, that I get to work with an amazing team of volunteers who show up every month, who make these events happen. They bring their passion, their time, their gifts, and their talents to make sure that you, our guests, feel welcome and warm and as part of our community. So thank you to all of our team and those in the future who are going to be joining us. None of this work and none of these events could happen without them. So thank you to my team, to our Creative Mornings Steering Committee for the incredible work through 2022. So please join me in thanking them. At long last, I'm now very pleased to introduce our speaker for today, Paul Loewen. Paul has worked at Loewen Mission for 4 years, first in the community education role and speaking to thousands of students a year about poverty and homelessness, and now as change manager, helping Loewen live into their new mission, vision, and values. He's committed to learning, growing, and envisioning a better world for those to come. According to Paul's Twitter account, yes, I stopped you, his superpower is dressing warm enough that he doesn't need to idle his car while waiting. Paul also loves playing games. He hosts at Peg City Games on Instagram and has recently created a geo-based game called Holiday Hunt, where you have to go find Santa's lost reindeer somewhere in Winnipeg and tag it and see if you're right. So go to his Instagram for details. Please help me in welcoming Paul Loewen to Creative Mornings.
Good morning. You did a good job of stopping me. As you said, my name is Paul Loewen. I work at Loewen Mission. My former role was community education coordinator, and that's kind of where this spins off from. I connected with schools all across the city and province to talk about poverty and homelessness, and groups of all sizes and ages, and churches, businesses, organizations. So we're going to continue that kind of conversation here today. And what we're going to do is, before I really get started to talking, I want to make you move a little because it's more fun. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw words up on the board here. And on the left side, I'm going to put the word disagree. And on the right, I'm going to put agree. And I'm going to make you move. So I'm going to make statements. And if you agree with them, you have to go over that way. And if you disagree with them, you're gonna have to come over this way. And I think you can handle this like middle school and high school students, probably better, I hope. And that is, as you move, just try to be quiet. And you can pick any spot on the line. So you don't have to go, this is not a dualism. You can go anywhere you want to. And then I'm gonna maybe ask a few of you questions about why you are where you are. So the first statement is practice. Dogs are better than cats. If you agree, you go there. If you disagree, you go there. Oh, right in the middle. Okay, so you just fall straight into the average here in terms of the split. I've done that with probably over 100 groups now, and I've had one time where there were more cat people than dog people, and we just shut it down and left. It wasn't, no, I'm just kidding. It wasn't like it was cat lovers of Manitoba or anything either. It was a random group. Okay, first real one. Poor people need money. Agree, disagree. Poor people need money. Okay, so we got a bit of a smattering in the middle here. Okay, in the back, why are you where you are? Nice and loud.
Well, I think that like money is just a small part of that. Like there's a lot of other supports that that aren't money that people need.
Okay, here with the hands on your shirt, why are you where you were?
I think most of all I need relationships, but they do need resources too to be able to access those relationships. So that's kind of why I moved
Okay.
a bit further along.
You're not all the way at agree, but you're somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, in the interest of time, like I said, I do this with groups of all ages, and I'm used to doing this for 2 hours, so you're good till 11:30, right? I'm going to modify that statement by just adding one word. Poor people just need money. Agree, disagree. Okay, so now while you're standing here, what I want you to do is we're just going to go popcorn style. Say one word. What does someone need other than money?
Housing.
Housing.
Friendship.
Friendship.
Compassion.
Compassion. Mental health supports.
Understanding.
Understanding. Childcare.
At least one person that loves them no matter what.
Okay, at least one unconditional love, friendship, or person.
Belonging.
Belonging.
Purpose.
Purpose.
Education.
Education. Food. Okay, next one. I know someone who is struggling with something big. Agree, disagree. Okay, so for this one, what I want you to do is, without breaking any confidence, just in one word, say the thing the person is struggling with. And if you don't want to, that's fine, but same idea, we're just going to go all at the same time and just try not to talk over anyone. I'll start. Undiagnosed mental illness.
Addiction.
Schizophrenia,
Hopelessness. Addiction.
kidney transplant.
Inflation.
Mental well-being.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Last statement. Everyone can become powerful. Everyone can become powerful. Agree, disagree. Don't fall pressure here. Don't fall to peer pressure here. Okay. Grab your seats, thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 3 types of poverty. And the reason we're going to talk about 3 types of poverty is because how we understand poverty is going to change how we respond to it. If we only see poverty in one way, we're only going to respond in one way. So my very easy example, when I was 2 years old, I fell down the stairs, I broke this arm, I went to the hospital, I came back with what? A cast. When I was 5, 6, 7, all the way up through about 15, I got a lot of ear infections. I'd go to the doctor or the hospital, and they would never put a cast on my ear, because that's stupid. What would they do instead? What would they give me? Eardrops, antibiotics, and I had a few surgeries, right? So the problem was different, and then the response is different. And the same thing is true about our different types of poverty. When we see one, we're going to need to respond one way, and when we see another, we're going to need to respond a different way. So the first type of poverty is one that you're really familiar with, and it's probably the first one. I'm shocked, it's not easy. Probably the first one that you think of, and that is basic needs poverty. Everywhere you go, every person you ever meet, there are 4 basic things we need to stay alive from today until tomorrow. What are they? Food, water, shelter, air. Yeah, air's that bonus 5th one, absolutely. It's free for now. If you've watched the Lorax, you know what I'm talking about. But we got food, water, shelter. And the last one? It's helpful right now on a cold day. Clothing, heat, warmth. So we got food, water, shelter, clothing. So these 4 are what we call the basic needs. And everywhere you go, every person you ever meet needs all 4 of these, or a mix of some of them. Now when I look around at Winnipeg, and I look around at Canada, it's obvious that we don't have all these basic needs being met. That's why Loewen exists in the first place. And I also look around at our country, and I think there is enough food, there is enough water, there is enough shelter, there is enough clothing. It's never a question of quantity, it's always a question of distribution, of sharing, or of equity. So, when it comes to basic needs poverty, the solution is usually really, really simple. Money. We've built it so that we depend on those things and so that we need money to get them, right? If you have enough money, you can meet your own basic needs. You can get your food, water, shelter, clothing. If you have more than enough money, you can do that for someone else, right? The theme of abundance. You can maybe do that for a loved one, family member, friend. And if you have more than enough money, you can do that for someone you've never met, right? You can donate to a place like Loewen or Main Street or any of these places that help meet those basic needs for someone else. Now, the first type of poverty was basic needs, and it's in many ways the simplest one. The second type, this drawing is harder, is what I call broken hearts poverty. Now, in the same way that we all need those 4 basic things, I'm also convinced that we all have broken heart poverty. I know I have it, you have it, your family has it, your friends have it, your coworkers have it. It's the worry, or the self-doubt, or the anxiety, or the depression, or the pain that we feel as humans when we just go through this thing called life. And there's a word at places like Loewen that we use for it, and that word is trauma. Trauma, I like to define as when something big and bad happens to us that changes who we are on the inside. Now I have a scar on my forehead here. It's from a surgery 8 years ago, and I like to say that trauma leaves a scar. But it's not this kind of scar. It's on the inside. It can change how we see ourselves, it can change how we see other people, and it can change how we see the world. And the thing about trauma and homelessness is that they're really, really closely connected. Like, I can't promise you that everyone who comes to Loewen had really, really significant childhood trauma, but I am willing to bet that absolutely the vast majority of them have. Just recently, the street census was published again, a few weeks ago, and they found that more than 50% of those who were in the Winnipeg's, the at-home housing first program in Winnipeg had 10 or more traumatic childhood experiences, right? So when we talk about trauma and homelessness, we realize they're really closely connected. And when we talk about addictions and we look at addictions, we realize that often at the root of the addiction, there's also trauma, right? Dr. Gabor Mata, are any of you familiar with him? The book In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, one of the things he talks about is once you get past 6 adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, traumatic experiences, your likelihood of experiencing an addiction goes up dramatically. So that's often at the root. Now, when we talk about trauma here in Canada, one of the things we have to talk about is residential schools in the 60s scoop and the current foster care system and the justice system and the CFS system and all of these things. And now in the news we have more eyes on the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, right? And we're talking about trauma. So it's no surprise that here in Winnipeg, when you look at the stats on homelessness, that about 70% of those experiencing homelessness are Indigenous, right? When only about 10 to 12 of the city is Indigenous, 10 to 12% of the city. Because of that trauma, because of that overrepresentation. Now, I asked you earlier what do poor people need other than just money, and you said some fantastic things. And this question or this moment is kind of similar. What do we need to help heal broken hearts? We need some of those same things you talked about, right? Relationships, support, friendship, mental health supports, therapy, love, compassion, kindness. Now, I want to take a pause here. I want to look at these two before I move on to the third one. And I want you to notice a couple of things. The first one is that they're different. Now, this should be obvious, but it isn't always obvious. When someone comes to Salome and they're hungry, it doesn't make sense to say, let's sit down and talk about your feelings for an hour. Just give them food. But by the same token, when someone needs support or unconditional love, it doesn't make sense to just give them a sandwich and say, now walk away, right? So, they're different. Someone might experience one, someone might experience the other, and someone might be experiencing both. The second thing I want you to notice is that basic needs is pretty much always going to come before broken hearts. I don't know about you, but my therapy session wouldn't go well if I didn't know where I was sleeping tonight, and if I didn't know what I was going to eat, or hadn't eaten in a long time, right? So basic needs is almost always going to have to come before broken hearts. The third thing I want you to notice is that I said basic needs, we can fix that pretty much in an instant. If we have enough money, we can do it on the spot. Food, water, shelter, clothes. But broken hearts takes time, right? It's not going to happen in a second. One grade 8 student was listening and he said, you know, I've heard it said that that colonization lasted 7 generations and it's going to take 7 generations to heal. I certainly hope that's not the case. But it speaks to how long this process can take. The last thing I want you to notice is that I said we all have some broken heart poverty. I do, you do, those around you do. But you don't see my broken heart poverty. And part of the reason you don't see my broken heart poverty is because I have all my basic needs being met. Because I have the food, water, shelter, clothes in abundance, I can hide my broken heart and squish it beneath the surface so that you see nothing this morning. But it's there. My wife knows some, my friends know some, my family knows some, my therapist knows some, but for the most part, it's hidden. But on the flip side, if someone doesn't have their basic needs being met, if they don't have the food, water, shelter, clothes they need, that's when the broken heart comes to the surface. And it looks like homelessness. It looks like addiction. It looks like violence. It looks like crime. It looks like abuse. But those are all symptoms above the surface, but beneath the surface is that trauma, is that pain. So, our third type of poverty is what I call systems poverty. Now, I define systems as, I should write the word. I define systems as anything that give power to someone and take power away from someone else for things they can't control. Picture a teeter-totter. On the top of that teeter-totter, I want you to picture a person. That person typically looks like me. One of the group exercises I do is when we talk about power, I get people to list the names of people who have a lot of power in the world. And well over 90% of the groups that I've ever done this with, and it's a lot of groups now, we will get 10 names into the list, and we will not name a single one. Right? We'll have gone through Biden and Trudeau and Trump and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and the King. Sometimes, when the Queen was still alive, she'd be on there. But for the most part, well over 90% of the groups won't name a woman until I ever tell them, hey, by the way, it's 2022, women exist. Right? And that's when they say, oh yeah, okay, Beyonce, Oprah. So when we're talking about systems, this is where we get into the language of privilege and oppression, right? So privilege. How many of you have ever done one of those privilege exercises where you like circle things on a sheet? Okay. If you haven't, I recommend you do it. I have a lot of privilege. When I do that exercise, I usually get somewhere around the 95, 97% of the things. Okay. The one that I think that always stands out is my parents never had a college education. That's like the only one that I know for sure I'm not going to circle. So privilege doesn't mean that my life has been easy. It just means that the things in my life that have made it difficult haven't happened because of my race or my gender or my orientation. So when we look at that list of names and when we picture the person on the top of the teeter-totter, we often picture someone like me. And the thing about privilege and teeter-totters is that they don't really work alone. If you have someone on the top of the teeter-totter and you would let that teeter-totter go, what would happen? Fall, right? So you need someone on the other end. And usually you need a lot of someone's on the other end. Whether we call that marginalization or oppression. And here in Winnipeg, and here in Manitoba, we are in one of these unique situations, and it's pretty much across Canada, but it's most exemplified in Manitoba, that our foster care system is continuing the colonization that has been happening for 200 years. And abundance is great. But I want to challenge you to recognize that an abundance without some form of redistribution is only going to keep making this worse. One of the questions I get asked is homelessness getting worse? And I have a 10-minute answer that I don't have time to give to you today. But the answer is yes. Right? If we keep doing what we're doing, it's not going to improve. And so that's the situation we're in. And so I want to challenge you by closing off with one question for each type of poverty. And they're rhetorical questions. So what that means is I don't want you to answer, I just want you to think about them. And I'll leave about 10 seconds of awkward silence between each of them. So just sit there. When it comes to basic needs, how far are we willing to let someone fall? When it comes to broken hearts, how can we support instead of criminalize people? And when it comes to systems, what are we willing to give up to build new and better ones? So that's my challenge for you this morning. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you for your time. This seems like a lot of fun as a group, so I appreciate it.